tensions are resolved. And Africa itself suffers from tremendous movements like Boko Haram in Nigeria and these horrific people from Al-Saba, which attacked university students in Kenya just last week. There's one more of these. Finally, in Asia, we've got increasing tensions along the South China Sea. China is beginning to flex its muscles. Japan is resisting, and this is going to have to go someplace. And then finally, in Americas, we have tremendous challenges. Mexico cannot keep its people safe from these narco guerrillas. We have the guys in Venezuela. Iago mentioned Venezuela. I mean, Hugo Chavez, maybe you don't like Hugo Chavez, maybe you disagree with Hugo Chavez, but he had some ideal. His successors have no ideal. They're only in it for the money. They're what another magazine called a mafia state, where thugs take over the government for their own personal gain. They're not even like dictators of the left and right who used to put some money in their pocket. These guys are just in it for the money. And it's very unclear what the rest of society can do. And what's even more unclear is what is the role for Europe in dealing with these crises around the world. So these are four challenges which I think are very important. And four challenges, of course, give us both threats and also opportunities. We can look at these in different ways. You can look at these populist parties as a threat, or you can look at them as an invitation to Brussels to start to listen, to perhaps rebuild European institutions so it reaches out to people rather than shutting them out. Maybe this is a chance to redefine the European project at the political level. Perhaps pollution and climate change can be an opportunity to use European science to lead the world in combating these questions. Now, I'll talk a little bit about Poland soon, but in Poland you have lots of coal, you've got very difficult to get shale gas, but you've also got fantastic science. So who better than the Poles to figure out how to burn coal cleanly or how to sequester carbon from coal plants? Changing demographics and this whole cultural thing is another opportunity where we could really try to reach out to these people and bring them into the European family. And finally, I do believe there is a role for Europe to play on the world stage. Certainly in Eastern Europe, but also if you go all the way to the other sides of the world, the United States is not credible as an independent party in some of these conflicts. They're not loved. If the Americans go to war again in the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to be a problem. Maybe European armies or European diplomats can go where Americans can't to help solve some of these problems. If we look at this, I think there are three basic choices for Europe. One choice could be to seize the moment, to set ambitious goals for the European project. One aspect of the thing could be a new energy policy for Europe, to lead the world in clean energy, to lead the world in renewables, to lead the world in pollution mitigation. Perhaps Europe can gain back some of that passion and energy that one of the professors earlier mentioned. The idea that this is something important, and perhaps part of the issue with communication between the politicians and the people of Europe is that people are bored because there's nothing going on, because they're not saying anything. And perhaps if there was a better plan, something important, something passionate, something with some energy behind it, it would be possible to motivate people. Perhaps a new energy future or a new future could bring people from all ethnic and religious backgrounds to Europe and have them feel that this is something important. And perhaps involving Europe more in the international arena rather than less could help save the planet. Now, another opportunity, of course, would be to pretend that everything is the same, that everything is going to be fine, and that nothing's really bad is going to happen. I think this is misguided. I don't think it's true, but it is certainly tempting from a point of view of how people can behave and how governments can think and how politicians can think. The problem is probably we're going to end up kind of muddling through. Probably the European leadership will pay lip service to some of these issues, talk about them, and then do very little, waiting for the crisis that the Chancellor mentioned earlier. Perhaps they'll just kind of bump along from crisis to crisis and wait till things get really serious. I don't think that's a good plan. So an opportunity is coming up in Paris. In Paris, in the end of the year, there's going to be a major climate conference. Most of you probably know about this. These climate talks, however, have dragged on for 20 years. They move from place to place. They typically get the name of the city, gets the declaration. The last one was the Lima Call to Action. The idea from Lima was every government on the world was supposed to send their paperwork to the United Nations explaining how they will fix the climate problem over the next 20 years. So far, 7 reports have been received. The European Union, the States, Russia, China hasn't sent its paperwork in. They haven't done their homework yet. But it's up to, we won't know till they get all the paperwork done how close they're going to be in Paris to avoiding massive heating of the world in the next 30 or 40 years. They just don't know yet. My guess is that they're going to come pretty short. This Paris conference reminds me of another Paris conference at the end of the First World War in 1919. Yeah. That conference dragged on for 6 months. Woodrow Wilson, the American president, before he left, he made 14 points. They're very famous 14 points. You guys probably know about the 13th point, which was the integrity of Poland and access to the sea, which didn't really happen. Your former president, the great pianist Paderewski, was very much involved in the conference, in the talks, and he was very disappointed by the results that they got. But the Paris Peace Conference is an example of diplomacy gone crazy. Diplomacy which was just too many people talking about too many things with everybody with their own point of view and 4 guys trying to make decisions for the world that they barely understood. Yeah, my hope is that Paris 2015 will be more effective than Paris 2019. And also, if you think about some of the problems in the world, the ones I mentioned before, in the Middle East, in Europe, many of those problems were created by these same guys in Paris in 1919, drawing lines on maps which they barely understood. This thing's kind of far away. So the question is, what kind of leadership can we expect from European leaders? Can we expect them to help the electorate understand the challenges it faces, to have the courage to actually tell people the truth, to get people to engage on real issues? The images from the movie Casablanca, if you remember the great Czech revolutionary leader as he sings the Marseillaise and gets the whole bar to kind of sing with them. You know, it was a very emotional moment. Or will Europe collectively stick its head in the sand and hope things get better? I did a course at the Harvard Kennedy School last year. Professor Dean Williams talks about the difference between what he calls real leadership and counterfeit leadership. For Dean, real leadership is moving the human condition forward and telling people the truth and getting people to listen and getting people to believe. And I believe if you had real leaders, the media will come to them and listen to them and get that message out. Counterfeit leadership is about keeping office. It's about keeping your power. In Spain, it's about stealing money. Both political parties have been stealing a lot of money, which is why some of these parties are coming up. Yeah. And I think we've had too much counterfeit leadership and not enough real leadership. Now let me talk a few moments about Poland, and then with luck we'll get the thing back on track from time. And we were talking yesterday about shale gas. Poland has huge quantities of shale gas, which are very difficult to get. There's 2 fundamental differences between shale gas and the United States, if I understand it correctly, but I know there's people here who probably know more about shale gas than I do. One is technical. The gas is deep and it's hard to get. This is an issue. The other is political. And I don't know if you know this, in the States, the mineral rights under somebody's house belongs to the person with the house. When you own a piece of land, you own the rights to everything under the land. In Spain and Poland, the government owns the mineral rights, and the people who live on the land don't. So when you want to come in and drill for shale gas in the States, people make lots of money, at least the people who own the houses and the land on top of the shale gas things, and they're the ones who bring in the oil companies, and in the local political process, they're the ones who defend shale drilling, because they're making money. and the people who work in the rigs. In Spain and in Europe and to some degree in Australia, where the government is going to get the money, people protest because the stuff is dangerous. It's a very technologically complicated drilling technique, which requires great care to do it well. So naturally, your neighbors are not going to want to do it if they don't get any benefit. It's a very, very subtle difference. But it's got to happen. Natural gas is a tremendously less carbon content than coal, less than oil. You've probably read that Shell bought the old British gas business 2 days ago, in a clear bet on the long-term future of gas. And this is something which I believe will have to happen in Poland. Poland also has a very strong and a very well-disciplined army, which perhaps could play a role in peacekeeping or even peacemaking in some parts of the world which need help right now. And perhaps Poland is far enough away that they won't get involved in Shia or Sunni problems because these guys are Polish. They don't know anything about it. Whereas perhaps other countries are too close to some of these issues. I think you also have a tremendous resource in these millions and millions of young people who have gone abroad, perhaps to make tea, but perhaps to be engineers. But in any case, to learn what the world is like, to learn about being more dynamic, working, and being successful in another culture. This is a tremendous resource. And these guys, I think, have an opportunity, or Poland has an opportunity to use these folks to do amazing things. And finally, in terms of Poland, you have a number of companies. I just put 7 on the chart because more didn't fit. Some of them are in this room today, which are doing amazing things, taking Polish business far away from Poland. Beata suggested I make a couple of comments on